Hey, Ms. Vanjie, here's number 2 video in the relationship series talking about trust, steps for healing broken trust, okay? I truly believe that trust is the glue and is the link that links two people together. At the end of the day, trust to me is agreement. It is basically an internal and an external agreement between two individuals. And I think without trust, it's very hard to move forward in anything successful, anything significant, any relationship, um, because you need that. But I also know that in relationships, because relationships can be one of the most stressful things that we experience here on this earth, we have to always maintain and be working and being intentional on developing and managing our trust levels. That means that we have to walk in a tremendous amount of integrity within ourselves so that we can walk with integrity outside of ourselves, which means within ourselves, there's a certain level of trust that we have to have within ourselves. We have to manage and develop and cultivate a certain level of internal trust within ourselves, in order for us to be able to truly be able to give that trust away and allow another person to trust us as well. Think about this. Think about how many times in our lives we made commitments to ourselves. How many times in our life we promised ourselves only to break those promises. And so if we think about it, we have a history of broken commitments. And so therefore, when things happen in our lives between other people, as we say, don't think it's strange that these things are happening because this is a human nature, natural type of thing. But I think the more we understand and the more we value the importance of cultivating and managing and developing trust, maintaining trust between individuals, the more quality of life that we will have. I know exactly what this is like because, I'll never forget that, when I was in college, I mean, you're going to college and you're having a good time, and this is when people say, "Hey, we sow our rural oats," or whatever. I'm taking a line from Coming to America here, but you're in college and you're young and you're just trying to have fun, and I remember getting into relationships in college, and I was still young. I mean, I loved relationships, but I don't think that I was not ready, prepared to really just kind of settle down, which basically means that. I wanted to still play football. I still wanted to go to class. I wanted to meet people. But at the end of the day, I still like to have a relationship. And so what I was really doing was my ultimate goal. I was trying to make it now into my present when I wasn't ready for it. What do I mean by that? By that, I mean that although I had a heart and desire for a relationship and desire for marriage, in the future, I was making that commitment right away. You know what I'm saying? I was making that commitment now, even though I was not ready. And so what happens in those situations? Well, you have two people, they enter into a companionship, and then from there they develop into they should develop into a friendship. Then they turn that into a relationship. And so I remember in college, man, I had a friend who I was in, we had a friend, we had companionship, and then we had got into a relationship. But in full transparency and honesty, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for it, although I was putting forth the effort into that. And because of that, they gave me their trust. They trusted me. They trusted that I was going to do what I said I was going to do. They trusted that I was not going to break their heart. They trusted that I was just going to, just kind of just talk to them, and it was just going to be an intimate relationship. But how many guys know, living in this earth, there's going to be times that we make mistakes. And so I'll never forget, I was involved with a young lady, and, and in being involved with this young lady who really cared for me and really, kind of would bend over backwards to take care of me and anything that she could. I mean, as people start to do when they start getting more mature in relationships. But I'll never forget, I went out to a party. I was partying with the guys, and, had some alcohol consumptions, and it's not an excuse at all. Because as they say, sometimes alcohol doesn't reveal the thing on the inside. It comes out, and I'll never forget, because of the influence of alcohol, I let down my guard. I did not have any boundaries, and I found myself talking to another young lady. I found myself, basically hugging on somebody else, which was totally wrong because I betrayed the trust of the young lady that I was with, which was totally wrong. And so how many of you guys know that? So for me at the time, I remember that one of her friends wind up telling her, going to say, hey, Donovan was at this party and somebody was all over him and this, that, and the other. And I know because of that, although I didn't do anything, beyond limit, I did enough. You see, what I wind up doing, even though physically, there may not have been any, infidelity in that way, emotionally there was. And because I gave my heart to someone emotionally and somebody gave their heart to me emotionally, and at the moment, because despite the factors or things that was around me, alcohol or whatever, there was a lack of trust. I betrayed that person's trust. And so after that, you can imagine the heartbreak. You can imagine the disappointment. You can imagine the fact of how a person, when you're with them, they're hoping for the best, but they're even hoping even greater for the best. When you go away, they're hoping that you live up to your word. And so in life, again, there's nobody's perfect, right? But at the end of the day, these things can happen. And so in my life, there's some of the things that I had to do to try to overcome that trust. Or try to win back that trust, when those things happen. Number one, I remember we were sitting back in the dorm room and just talking. And the first thing I had to do is I had to acknowledge my actions. I had to acknowledge, what, I was wrong. I was wrong. But when you're young or even in life, one of the first things that we have to overcome is we start to get defensive. It was because of this, it was because of that. We start making excuses. But the first thing is I had to acknowledge my actions. I said, what I did was wrong. It was wrong. I had to put myself in their shoes. To build trust, you have to put yourself in another person's shoes. You got to say, how does it make them feel? Despite what I'm saying, what I did, or making a reason why, how did this make them feel? What did this make them think about? And how are they experiencing it now? So the first thing I had to acknowledge my actions. I had to let them know I did this. This is what I did wrong. I should have never did this. If I had to do it over again, this is what I would do. The next thing I had to be honest. I had to be honest. Wait a minute. What was it about that moment? What was it about me drinking alcohol and all of a sudden now, it felt like it gave me the permission slip to go out here and to do this thing? Was it something wrong that I thought with my relationship? Was I not satisfied? Or was I not even honest with myself and say, I'm not even ready for this? And prepare that and give the young lady an opportunity to basically say, hey, you know what? I appreciate your honesty and I don't want this type of relationship, or I don't want this type of involvement, or I want more. And even it allows me to be honest with myself and say, hey, Donovan, you may not be able to have these type of relationships because you're not ready for something that other people are ready for. And so I had to get honest with myself, and I had to get honest with the young lady to say, listen, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wasn't ready, and I'm not ready. Versus going through the motions. Because as long as we're going through the motions, we never get anywhere. As long as we're going through the motions, nothing never gets healed. And so it's not until we get honest that we really, really, at the end of the day, we get to where we're at. The next thing, I kind of address the question. What is the question here? Like, Donovan, why did you do this? I had to ask myself, why did I do this? What was it in that other person? Was it just a physical attraction? Was it just a stimulus of the dopamine and all of that stuff that gets released at the moment? Or was it an escape? Was it something I felt that the other person was missing? But at the end of the day, I had to ask myself, I had to ask these questions. And for a college person, you're like, wait a minute, Dom, self-reflection. Well, guess what? Self-awareness and self-reflection and understanding yourself is one of the greatest things that you can ever do. Because you can't ever get to know somebody else until you truly know yourself. And in order to build back this trust, by being honest, by basically asking myself the question, and asking them the question. Really, sometimes we avoid questions because we don't want to know the answer. But in asking them the question, how do you think we're doing? What do you think? Do you think that there's an opportunity for us to move beyond this moment? After all that, I had to listen to their feeling. I couldn't get defensive. I had to sit there and I had to take it. And so if there is a sense of trust that has been broken, you have to sit there and listen to it. You have to listen to the feelings. How did this do it? Because you got to remember, it's a soulish thing. It's a soulish thing. The mind, the will, and the emotions. It's the mind that think about when you have infidelity in their families and relationships, even with the father, you know what I mean, a father to a child, when they don't come through, when there's, you know, where they leave, or a father commits adultery or infidelity and he goes away, or he does something bad to the children, their trust is broken. I mean, you got to think about it. You know, that's such a core thing. And you have to be able to allow that person to express how they really feel and listen to what it is, you know what I mean, without judging them, because their feelings are real. The emotions they have are real, and they have to be able to express it. And as you listen to it, you want to be able to receive that. You want to be able to listen and understand that this is part of the process of building back that trust. Them being heard, their heart being heard. They may say it one way, but their heart being heard. I know for me, during those moments, one of the things that helped, you know, that helped the relationship mend, that helped the relationship, you know, get back together, was me basically understanding, you know what, me basically saying, listen, I hear that, I hear what you're saying, and I'm sorry that I hurt you. I should have never did it. You see, what was I doing in me stating some of those things? I was basically going fishing, if you will, fishing for their feelings. I was trying to relate to what they were saying, some of the things that they said and some of the things that they didn't say yet. But what that does to the other person when you do that, when you acknowledge how they may be feeling sometimes before they say it, it lets them know that you understand me. Now, it doesn't take away the pain, but it does start at a point of he or she understands me. And so again, listening to the feelings, and then at the end of the day, listen, you just got to be patient. Because it won't turn over overnight. Matter of fact, you know what I mean, a person breaking trust didn't happen overnight, and you have to be patient. But this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you get a chance to ask questions. Is it worth it? And if it's worth it, you'll wait. If it's worth it, you allow it to turn. Because think about this: when we betray a person's trust and they're going towards us, and this is eyes, this is the eye, and they're coming looking towards us. When they betray that trust, man, it just turns them away. Okay? And now they're walking this way, even though you're still together. But what you got to do is, man, slowly through patience, get them to turn back to you. Get them to see you for who you are. To see you guys, the couple, for who you are. See the family for what you can be. You see, there's a lot of families out there now where the father may have committed, you know, been unfaithful, and it's messed up the children. It's messed up the wife. It messed up the whole unit. And his father has to be patient, understanding that it takes time. The mother has to be patient, understanding, hey, it takes time. You know, everybody involved has to be patient, understanding that when trust is broken, it does take time. And you can't just snap your finger and say, hey, you need to get over this, because that's unfair to them. Because every healing process takes time. You break your ankle, a bone, they said it takes 6 to 8 weeks. So imagine yourself getting frustrated with God and getting frustrated with yourself and start beating yourself up if after 4 weeks it's not healed yet. And so everything takes time. And depending on the severity of the hurt and the pain, it may take a little bit longer. So understand, be patient. Another thing I had to do is I had to take responsibility for my action. I had to take responsibility. This is not their fault. This is not because they did this or they didn't do this. No, this is because this is what I did. It was because I chose this kid to, you know what I'm saying, to get, you know, alcohol and drink alcohol. It was because I put myself in that position. It was because I didn't create the boundaries. It was because I allowed myself to go out that night. I could have chosen to stay in. It's because I was not fully committed to the relationship as much as I may have said I was at the moment, for whatever reasons there may have been. But I had to take responsibility for myself. You see, at the end of the day, you guys, I think people whose trust we betray or trust we hurt, they're more forgiving than we give them credit for. But really what they're asking for us to do is just acknowledge it. Acknowledge that you hurt me. Acknowledge that you forgot me. And acknowledge that you left me. Acknowledge that you turned your back on me. Acknowledge the fact that, you know what, you didn't live up to your agreement. Acknowledge that first. Because once you do that, that opens the door. That releases the defensive wall, and that opens the door for them to receive and begin the process. But sometimes it's not until you acknowledge it that they can't even start the process of healing. But sometimes just acknowledging it is everything. And then the last thing, you have to stay focused on I had to stay focused on my intention. Stay focused. Why am I doing this again? Why am I really being empathetic and sympathetic about and remorseful about what I did, because I really love this person, or I really care about this person, and I want this person to move forward, and I don't want to be the person that causes a scar. Although I can't control what happens in them, I can control what I do after my actions. And so being intentional, understanding that, I have a role to play. And so what did I do? After these conversations that I wound up having, I said, listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I did this. And I had to realize this is where I'm at, and this is what I thought. And I'm sorry that I did this, and here's what I what not to do. And I had to basically, at the end of the day, they say, if you love something or someone enough, you'll give it away. And if they come back, it's meant to be. And so I said, listen, if you leave, if you want to go, I totally understand. I totally understand. But my desire is for you to stay. And so again, when you're thinking about, if you're in a situation of trust and you betray trust, it takes time. You got to be intentional. You got to start with yourself. You got to focus on the end goal. You got to be patient. And you have to ask yourself some questions so you can get the answers you need to start to heal, develop, cultivate, manage that trust back. If it's worth it to you, it's worth it working on. So listen, that's my story about it. I hope this is encouraging to you. I hope there's something that was stated in this moment that helps you move beyond where you're at, because we've all faced some type of hurt and disappointment. Always remember this: if you're the person that was betrayed, if you were the person that disappointed, always remember, in order to move forward, you gotta forgive. Because forgiveness is simply this: giving yourself permission to move forward. And until you forgive and let go and release it, until you do that, you'll be stuck right where you're at. You say, but I can't forget it. I didn't ask you to forget it. I asked you to forgive it. Give yourself permission to move forward. And when it comes back up, you just remind yourself, as it came back up, I've already forgiven this person. And you cast it down and you move forward. If it comes right back up right away, again, I already give myself permission to forgive this person, and I let it go. What that would do is help to set you free. After a while, it's just like a bully, right? If a bully can't get you, if they continue to bother you and they can't instigate you and get a reaction out of you, they go on to someone else. So forgive yourself today as you're forgiving others today. You guys be blessed today. Peace.